Hi, Freddie Prinze Charming, and my pronouns are he, him, in, and out of drag. I am a mentor, a public speaker, an educator, a multi award winning entertainer, producer, and MC, and a transgender man.
And I'm Felicia Fefe Minor. My pronouns are he, him out of drag, and she, her in drag. I'm a Black content creator, producer, and co host of our weekly podcast, Let's Have a Fifi. For Transgender Day of Visibility, we've been asked to talk a little bit about performing and how drag has helped us become who we are, and why we are so passionate about things like Drag Story Hour.
So, I was exposed to drag at a pretty young age when we lived in Thailand. I remember my dad taking us to a cabaret style show in Pattaya called Alcazar, where the all trans women and lady boys. In school plays and musicals, I was often cast in male roles. Go figure. I was always more comfortable in those roles than I was in more feminine ones. You've never seen a more awkward Grace Farrell in Annie, let me tell you. Uh, it was, it was not okay.
Well, I don't have such a fancy story, but I may have seen drag on TV maybe once or twice growing up, but didn't know really what it was. And on our first date with my husband, I saw drag for the first time, and I knew as soon as I saw like a couple of queens come out, I was like, yes. And it was at a bar in Chandler called the Wild Card. And I wanted to do that, whatever that was. But I definitely dabbled in the makeup, made some mistakes. It was a struggle. If you take a look at some of my previous photos from my early days, you'll see some disasters that happened back then and that are still happening now. But many of my mentors were who were trans folks, helped me find my correct foundation colors, amongst many things. And now here we are, poof, 20 years later. We made it.
So we all start somewhere, right? um, so before transitioning,
Yeah.
I remember looking in the mirror when I was doing a show and feeling far more in touch with what I saw there than otherwise. You know, the facial hair, the more masculine features, the flattened chest. I knew that that was much closer to what I actually wanted to see on a daily basis, and not just once in a while when I had makeup and a binder on. When I first started performing, which it's almost 20 years ago now, I had partners who were always very happy that all of that came off at the end of the night. Um, and they weren't really on board with, trans folks, or even the idea of me ever potentially transitioning. um it it prevented me from actually coming out as trans, even though I knew that that was the truth. Enough, after finally coming out as trans, I found I'm far more comfortable expressing a more feminine side. Um,
Hmm.
Obviously, with more sort of feminine style makeup. I've been known to throw on a pair of heels now and then, kind of gender blending my costumes, and throw in more feminine pants or a more feminine shirt and some heels, and then sort of counter that with either a more masculine face, or just kind of mixing it up. And even drag, uh, I have a tendency to, especially if I know I'm going to be somewhere in public, or if there's going to be like photos taken. I've been known to kind of throw on some, basic makeups of boy as you were.
Oh boy. Outside of drag, Uh, I was a sheltered and very introverted person. I say was because with drag, I found confidence to try different things. Um, and I've been able to express myself more creatively than I had ever imagined. Um, I even learned how to deal with things in my day-to-day life with evidence. And I still walk around with the nails during the day. And I'm still a work in progress, but drag has opened up the door and shown me many of my strengths, my weaknesses, and opened up for the both of us, I think. And through our
Absolutely.
show, I've learned things from Freddie. Gosh, was I ever sheltered. But and I've learned some things from others through our 10 years as podcast hosts. And we've also been afforded fantastic opportunities that I don't think we would have come across outside of this.
I think Felicia, you learned a lot about the sort of transitioning process with me because
Hmm.
I essentially transitioned on the Fefe. Like, it was actually a very public transition. We would, because
Indeed.
we do our webcast every week, and so when I first started transitioning back in 2014, the you would see, even in drag, even in face makeup, you'd see the changes in, my facial features, and changes in even just
Your voice.
structure, my voice, how my voice would change, especially, after a month or so, the changes in my voice sort of week to week would be, it was interesting. But I think that doing that, and you know sort of transitioning publicly on a show was an
Hmm.
experience, definitely, for both of us.
Uh, it gave me more of instead of like the outside looking in, I was right there beside you. So I
you,
was like, "Oh, okay. I know how this
you
is working and day to day how this could, you know, go good or how this is going not so good." But yes,
and,
definitely.
had it not been for drag, I don't know that my transition would have been that public. Because it's
Hmm.
out there. All of the old, everything it's all on YouTube. All the old episodes, oh God, are all on YouTube, and
That's where you can see
that's
us.
not, I don't,
Mm.
right, and I don't know that I would have, I don't know that I would have done things quite so publicly,
Hmm.
and really kind of, I guess, been encouraged to be so out about it, had it not been for drag. So one of the other things that we are very much involved in, is Drag Story Hour. We are, both of us are actually, are on the national board. I'm also on the local board here for Drag Story Hour Arizona. Um, for me, books and reading have always been such a huge part of my life. I'm an only child, so, which meant that when I was little, it was books, basically. I inhaled them. I wanted to, have. I created whole worlds and everything in my head, all based on the books that I was reading, and all my make believe and everything was always based on these books that I was reading. I was fully enveloped, in these books, and today I am a total book hoarder. I
Mm. True
full on
story.
admit it. Um, I have all types of genres you could possibly imagine. Um, Everything, like, it's yeah. So, encouraging kids to get excited about books and reading, was something that was really appealing to me. And I'd heard about Drag Story Hours before, and when we first started doing them back in 2019, it was still very new here in Arizona. A few folks had kind of done like kind of their version of a drag story hour, but um, it wasn't like with the actual official organization. It was just like, hey, let's go do this thing and read some books to kids. But as far as being an actual part of the organization, that was still very, very new. And when I realized that this was an opportunity to not just get kids excited about books and reading and everything, but I was also able to encourage things like diversity and inclusion and visibility, and all that was right up my alley. I wish that I had had access to things like that when I was a kid. Um, I
Mhm.
Things would have been very different, I think, to be able to see myself represented in books, to meet people like me, to have the language to be able to describe how I was feeling and why I was feeling that way. Um,
Mhm.
you Back 40, 35 years ago, that wasn't a thing. There wasn't, we didn't have that. And to be able to give that to kids now, it's amazing to me. Representation matters. And seeing their identities reflected back to them at such a young age can make kids feel like they're not so alone in their feelings, that there are other people like them out there. Even if it's just a basic a book where um there's no pronouns used at all. It's just it's
Mm.
a story about a kid who likes dressing up, and they just use their name, and they never really use pronouns, and that's okay. And it's just simple things like that. And then to see people like me reading and being there, even if they don't necessarily realize it at the time, they see, and they'll recognize this later. I think they'll see that you can be trans and thrive. You can do drag and thrive, and you can be different and thrive, not
Mm.
just survive, but thrive in life and in this world. And for me, that's so important, especially right now, all the anti-trans and the anti-LGBTQ legislation that's out there that is targeting our trans and LGBTQ youth.
Absolutely. And there's a fight to be had. But for me, um, I think that for the families that see that they can be comfortable in this safe space and that their child can be who they are authentically in this safe space brings a whole nother joy to story time, story hour. And for me, even though I loved reading, I was not good at it at first. It seems to be a thing for me. But I was not good at it, but it always played a major part in my life. And so I took to writing once I got the hang of it, and I always and then reading became better for me because if I can imagine it and I can dream it, and then I can read somebody else's words and they're imagining there, it just became full circle for me, and it was a way to escape and be open to the world and travel the world without even leaving my bedroom, and also gave me a little bit of a safe space. And I joined Drag Story Hour with no hesitation because um, like Freddie said, I imagined my younger self saying, where is this person that looks like me, that's reading a book, that's into the things that I'm into, and how can I be comfortable? And the more they see people like themselves, the more they're open to that joy that they experience instead of just the heartache and struggles that they're going through. But it has been um, amazing. I like to interact with the children so as to find one boss that at each story hour that is seems to be the one that maybe have read the book already, knows all the characters in the book. Sometimes telling me that I can't do story characters' voices well. And that's the honesty we need from a boss. But we have fun and we have shared so many moments with families um, and children all over the state. Even doing a couple of adult story hours where we've
Mhm.
done some amazing story hours that are just for adults. And they don't see any negative or um, they see the story and they get taken in by the story and they're entertained, and that's what brings me joy. So I love being a part of Drag Story Hour and all the things that we're into.
And I think, when it comes to performing and drag and everything that all of that, and how that's gone into sort of shaping, you know being authentic and kind of who we are. Like, Felicia, you're not
Hmm.
trans, but I say that, and I don't know. I'm sure that you would have been an ally either way, but for me, it's when I started doing drag, I never imagined that I would be here, that I would have been, doing Let's Have a Fefe for, over a decade. And I think that
Hmm.
in that, and the fact that, we have been friends for so long, I think that you are by far one of the best allies that, the trans community has. And I'm gonna take a little bit of credit for that. Just a little bit. But you are always but I mean, you are always, so quick to
Well,
ask
even back
about
in the day
pronouns and,
when I first
right.
started drag, yeah. Even when I first started drag, I loved the Kings, Kings, Kings. Even started out with, we're gonna have one King show a month, and everybody was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "This is you all are missing out." And so, when it comes, we the LGBTQ plus, we can't forget about the T at all, because the first bricks, the first stones, are on those people's backs, and we have grown, and we have so much work to do, and many of those people that are carrying the doing, doing the heavy lift um, are the T and the LGBTQ. So um,
I think one
that.
thing that
Mhm.
when it comes to being trans and being an entertainer, I think that people kind of they don't necessarily, they either overlook it or they don't they don't it doesn't click right away, is that as an entertainer, it doesn't matter really what kind of entertainer, whether it's drag or whether you're a musician or whatever it is, you create a network and you start meeting people, and it's
Mhm.
through that network, and it's through those doors and the opportunities that performing um has given us, that we've been able to connect to other queer and trans artists. And had I not started performing when I did, like, it's always when things kind of align, and when I started performing in Tucson way back in the day,
Mhm.
I that was where I met my first out trans man. And that was the first sort of
Mhm.
aha moment that really gave me the language that I was looking for in order to understand what was going on in my head. It still took me a while to verbalize it and to come to terms with it and to actually, you know, come out as trans. Had I
Mm.
not started performing and had I not met the group that I did, I don't know how much longer it would have before I met my first out trend. That, that would have that started that catalyst that started the wheels turning in my head. And so in retrospect, in all honesty, I really have to say that performing and doing drag really what helped me become who I am and really understand and have the courage to come out as trans. I don't know that
Mhm.
it took me long enough, and I think that with it comes with performing, I think that is it's a big deal. It's a big. I don't think a lot of people
It is.
understand, you know, how things like doing drag can give someone who is struggling with their identity the boost that they need and the confidence they need to be able to finally come out and be like, nope, this is who I am. These are my pronouns. Period. Full stop.
And with that, sometimes living your day to day, if you tried some of the things that, like we do when we're in drag, you kind of would get like what is going on there? Not to say that folks are not able to um, begin to live their authentic life outside of drag, but I would say that you're given an abundance of opportunity because now you're like performing and you're like, oh, I like this, I love this, uh and not to say that that one experience is better than the other, but also, even as a gay man, um being effeminate was very much a weapon used against me. And so as I grew into my adult self and having drag right there, um, I am fine and dandy being an effeminate gay man. And there is no weapon. In fact, I find it more powerful than said masculinity. But you know, and I think that we're all on this journey to figure out what's best for ourselves, and um, it can be uncomfortable, but
So,
here we
I
are.
mean, I feel like the best thing that you can do for yourself is to live authentically, whatever that means to you. But it's also one of the hardest things that you can do because a lot of times it
Hmm.
means unpacking a lot of things that are holding you back from living authentically. Um, I saw a meme the other day that said, "There's never been a world without trans people, and there never will be," and that is 100% true. You know, we're not new. We're not a brand new fad. We're not, we didn't come along with like Amazon. We've been around
Oh my
for
goodness.
ever. We have never not been here. If going back into history, and there have been trans folks of all genders and gender identities throughout history in every culture, and we will
Hmm.
always be here. No amount of anti-trans legislation is going to change that. It may change how open folks are, and it may change how things happen in public, but it will never make us go away. Um, you know,
Hmm.
and I mean, even now there are folks that are more out and open than others, and that's okay. not being out and open doesn't make them any less trans. I'm privileged enough to be able to be out and loud and proud about who I am. And I do my best to use that privilege to educate and to be visible and to be a resource to those who may need it. And we are so much more than the transgender. I because I had to explain this to my partner when we first started dating. I'm the first trans person that she's ever dated, which nothing wrong with that. But I had to kind of explain to her that as soon as you disclose to anyone that I'm trans, or that your partner is trans or whatever, almost immediately everything else about that person goes away. Um, we are
Mm.
we are doctors, we are lawyers, we are artists, we are pilots, we are authors, we are content creators, we are all of these different things. But too often all those other things kind of become secondary to the transgender. I'm a trans artist, I'm a trans this, I'm a trans. And I think part of being visible and things
Hmm.
like the Transgender Day of Visibility helps to highlight the that we are, the things that are honestly generally more important than being trans. The that we are parents, and we are spouses, and but yes, we are trans as well, and that's fine. It's who we are, and most of us are proud of that. And we are, those of us that can be, are open and we speak about it. But I think that one of the key things to remember is that we are more than that. Like we
Mhm.
are more than the adjective of being trans. And then I think that is still a little bit of a struggle, and I'm that's why I'm always so passionate about doing things like this, because it I think it starts to kind of humanize us a little more too, especially for folks that are seeking to make us not so human.
Well, um, I say thank you for being visible because once upon a time somebody thanked me for being visible. Um, I read the other day that Trans Day of Visibility is a day to celebrate and bring awareness to trans folks. And with that, I think that there is so much that is said and done in the media that trans folks, especially trans folks of color, are people that are dying or being murdered. They're never really celebrated in the media as they should be, as they could be, and for that, I even thank those that acknowledge the Trans Day of Visibility because there are so many people knocking down barriers and hearing that you can't do that and doing it anyway. And being that catalyst that sets forth the motion that other people can walk through the door instead of waiting their turn in line. And so, all in all, this day is a day of celebration, a day to say that even those that have lived and are continuing to live are doing great things. If you know folks that are doing great things and nobody's celebrating them, or we do this thing where we're good at what we do, but we rather not say because, well, I'm this person and I not. And so And so I think that
Why do I
we,
feel like you're coming at me?
because I've done this to you and said, well, why
Uh,
haven't we? Um, but we need to be celebrating our siblings that have done great things and don't think that they're doing so great, but they are. They're creating, even if it's a small path, they're creating a small path for somebody else to walk right behind them. So, with that, I think that all in all, life is a journey. It's about finding yourself and being comfortable in your own skin. And as we get older, we surround ourselves with those love just as much or are on the journey to finding that love for themselves that is just as important. And learning these new things about ourselves and getting to know yourself every day is part of that journey. And if at any point you feel uncomfortable about it, it's supposed to be. Learn from it. Live for the next moment. Live for yourself, and do things for yourself, and celebrate yourself. And I hope that you can inspire someone, and I hope I continue to inspire someone that looks like me or is walking down a similar path as me.
I would say, you talked about, the discomfort and being uncomfortable with new
Mhm,
things or whatever, and I would say that growth comes from discomfort. So if you're
mhm,
uncomfortable with something, if something's a little disconcerting, if you find out why, I can almost guarantee that you will grow from that experience. And that
tenfold,
growth
tenfold.
is
Mhm.
important. Um, Thank you all so much for having us be a part of your visibility series. I hope that news to support and uplift the trans voices that you have in your lives, and when it comes to being a good trans ally, one thing to remember is that we don't need you to speak for us. We have voices. In fact, some of us are pretty darn loud.
I don't know anyone
you
like
know
that.
it's the
Mm-mm.
so we don't need you to speak for us. We love our allies, and we need our allies now more than ever. But sometimes we may need some help to hold the microphone. So with that, thank you so much again, for having us, and
Indeed,
yeah, I
thank
guess
you. Good
enjoy the
good
rest of
day.
the series.
Yeah.